Good afternoon and welcome to State of Sponge 4 in June 2015. Speaking right now is Sponge Leader Jeeden, and I'm going to go around and introduce a couple of us here that are a part of our little session this evening. First off, we have Gabazo, who is our API Design Specialist.
Hello.
We have ME4502, which is a API developer as well as an implementation developer.
Hey.
We have the one and only Prog, who sits here and handles IRC as well as build systems about getting our jars out the door. I think Prog's not here with us right now.
I am here. Sorry, I didn't realize I was actually supposed to respond to that.
No problem. We have Inscrutable, who manages our docks and makes sure that we have an ample supply of lard.
Top of the morning to you.
We have Aaron, who is an API developer as well as an implementation developer and is known as the master of the scoreboards.
Hello.
We have Demon, who works on API development as well as implementation development and specializes in doing world-gen stuff such as populators.
Hello.
We have Ferris Grimm here with us, who is hanging out with us today as well as does moderation on the forums and such like that.
Hey, everybody.
We have Gradimax with us, who, as you know, is our web lead, as well as handles OR and does API development and some implementation development.
Hi.
We have Owen here, who leads our community outreach right now while Skate is not here with us. He also does liaison as far as reaching out to branch us out a bit more with several interests, as well as helping me with the LLC shenanigans.
G'day all.
And I think for the most part, that's most everyone. Oh, yes, forgot about Gregabyte. Yep. So we have Gregabyte here with us, who handles doing all the shenanigans with the TeamSpeak and making sure that it doesn't crash at least once every day.
Hello there.
All right, so I think that covers most of the introductions. To start it out, I'm going to have Owen start us off with talking about Minecon and donations.
Okay, well, so far with our Patreon account, we currently have $75 per month in donations, which is really nice. That's helping us out a lot. As always, more donations are appreciated. Minecon's expensive business. And speaking of which, we have applied for our Minecon panel. We are currently still waiting for a response from Mojang, like practically everyone else at this point. We've also had interest in a booth. So, again, depending on when Mojang gets back to us, we are very much hoping to be able to show off a booth this year, which would be well, we'll have a bunch of demonstrations going, and it should hopefully be quite fun. Now, we're still, like, as always, the more plugins people create, the more interesting tech demos, the more stuff we can show off at any potential booth or panel. So we highly encourage everyone to get in, make cool things so we can show the entire community just how amazing both your stuff and our stuff is.
All right, so I think for the most part that pretty much covers it. We just wanted to start off by giving everyone a status update on it.
Yeah, hopefully we should have some more on that within a few weeks. It really just depends on Mojang at this point.
Absolutely. So, in a break from our past State of Sponges, where we did mostly talking about where we're at, where we're going with the API, where we're going with the implementation, we wanted to put the focus not necessarily on the implementation or the API, and this time we wanted to focus more on what people are actually doing with it, because ultimately that's really what everyone cares about. Not necessarily that you have Sponge on your server, but what can I do with this? So for this State of Sponge, we reached out to the community and we asked for people to submit stuff that they've worked on and in plugin form for us to kind of use this data sponge to demo it. And so our testing server does have a variety of plugins installed on it today. And if you have that list handy, Owen, would you like to read off what we have installed?
I think Gabazoo might be the one to check it, given that he's got the most up-to-date list.
I actually do not. I think Demon does.
There's a list in the document.
Yes, but the doc is not updated.
Okay, give me a sec here, folks.
While he's pulling that list up right there, too, some of the big features that we will also show off today on the server is going to be Aaron's work that he's done with getting scoreboards basically good and ready to go. We also have a surprise in store in regards to human NPCs. That work was put together by Grinch for testing purposes on this server, and I think that you guys are going to really enjoy what you see with it. We also have stuff that has been built and put together on the server just to kind of give the little sponge flair to it. And we have a variety of plugins that give the abilities such as permissions and such. And once Owen gets that list together, he'll be more than happy to list off what. Oh, there we go. Looks like we have something right here.
Yep. We have Craftbook 4. The builds courtesy of Me4502, which we've got some very interesting features that we'll be able to show off. We have Craft Colony 3 running, but sadly we haven't been able to set up any sort of demos on the server for this state of Sponge. Hopefully we'll do that in future. We also have Kingdoms, Link Clicker, Permissions X, Aaron's Scoreboard Test plugin, Serverless Plus, U command signs, and World Edit. The World Edit's currently the Forge version, and since Sponge is built on top of Forge, it is completely compatible with all Forge, well, mostly compatible with Forge mods, I should say. So we're able to use the Forge build of World Edit on the server.
Right, and what we'll want to do is we are working to put up another update to our testing server during State of Sponge right now, in which will bring in the Followers plugin, which is also by Grinch, and that will allow us to kind of show human NPCs off and see what they can do. We'll have some fun with this one later on. So moving on from this and talking about where we're at right now as far as the API is concerned, over the past month, there have been a couple of API changes, but some of you that have been observant will notice that we are starting to unwind doing massive updates to it. There's one big, or I should say there's two big ones left in the scope of what's been pushed in the last month. The first one is going to be any changes that Demon needs to make for his massive PR coming for populators. That's the first one. The second one is going to be the finalization of the data API. That is going to end up happening before State of Sponge 5, which we will talk about here in a little bit. Past that point, basically the API starts to go into maintenance mode, where we start adding in additional things that have been lost or not have been expanded upon to the point where they should be so far. One of those is also going to be causes, which a lot of people have asked us about for events. We're going to finalize that system as well too, and basically get to a point where we want to start minimizing the amount of API breakages, or take it to a point to where there really isn't any. Obviously, it's really hard to say because you can implement something, but you don't truly know until someone starts using it. And a lot of these API changes have came about because people have used it, or we've used it ourselves with making plugins or just testing things. And we've noticed that, this is not going to quite work out, and we have to go back sometimes even to the drawing board on it and fix it and just push it up. But that's the nature of a project that's still very much an infant at this point. Other than that, that's really the big ones. So I guess instead of two, there would be really three, and that's the populator changes, if any, the data API finalization, as well as uh, deciding what we're going to do where causes are concerned. Past that point, now we start looking toward what our focus is right now, which is we're not really focusing on writing new API because we have most of it there. We're starting to look at making this all come together and making everything work. At this point, there is a lot of changes that have been done where the implementation is concerned over the past month. We've had a couple of people that have started to fire events. We've had more data processors that have been implemented are available for use. We've also started to get the multi-world changes that are known in Sponge to be ported over to Sponge Vanilla as well, which I had just gotten to work before this State of Sponge broadcast, but it was not ready to go. It's not nearly stable enough yet for a public demonstration. But by State of Sponge 5, we'll be able to show multi-world stuff working for Sponge Vanilla too. Basically, our priorities for the implementation is right now, I have people set on designated tasks. Demon, like I said, on populators. We have Gabazo, who's always focused on data, and it's probably going to do data until the day he dies at this point. But past that, we need people to come in and help us start firing events, which I know is one of the biggest questions for us on the forums right now, is when is X event going to be fired? Basically, the events that get reported to us to be fired, they are made a priority, but there's been some bigger systems that have had to get finalized and get put into place first before I can basically start pulling 3 people over to just calling events. Make no mistake, though, that's where I'm trying to get us to. We're just not at that point. But if you're a capable developer, if you understand the Sponge ecosystem and you want to get in there and fire events, then I'm not going to stop you. Give us a PR and we'll work with you and get it pulled, especially if you need it for your plugin. That's really the biggest things that's going to land before State of Sponge 5. At least that's my goal at this point. I'm hoping that the implementation will be at a point in which it can be considered beta level. Granted, that will ride on a couple of things. Make no mistake, it definitely will be a busy June for all of us here in the project. And I can't iterate enough that if you do have the ability to help and you feel that you want to, or if you have the ability to help but you're not really sure how to actually develop on the Sponge ecosystem, then do reach out to us and we will certainly help you to make sure that you can help us, obviously. I think that pretty much covers most of where we're going with the implementation. We'll obviously be able to show you the fruits of our labor once we have everyone come onto the dev server here in just a little bit. Hopefully we'll be able to have a bunch of fun with some of the stuff that we've gotten implemented can be played around with now. Other than that, I think at this point I'll go ahead and turn this over to Inscrutable, because that way he can talk about Doc some more and see if he can campaign to get some more people to help him.
Aye. Well, I hope everyone can hear me okay. Firstly, I'd like to say we've got some new staff, which I really appreciate because we need all the help we can get. So we have some new chaps called Bowformer, Saladoc, and Zirconium, who've joined and give us, even before they became staff members, they've given us heaps of PRs and data on sections of the API and lots of discussion that's frankly over my head in the first place, so I really appreciate the presence. We also have a new grouping on GitHub. We reshuffled the staff on GitHub, and so now we have a whole bunch of people. We have 9, in fact, documenters on Git. We are the 9 who go knee. These are people who are generally trusted to be able to do merge and pull requests, but a lot of them are happy to leave it to me anyway, but they're certainly very helpful for advice. So we have a lot more people who will be available on, for example, IRC to be able to answer questions. I'd also like to take a chance to thank TZK, Ryan Leach, and a few others too who have been helping a lot recently. I'd like to poke a few developers too, because I mean, there's still a few issues we have that have been tagged with people's names who they haven't given much attention to lately. In particular, one for Mod Whiz Code about videos, but also Demon, Aaron, and ZML, who could possibly give us a bit of a help here and there on a few issues that have been flagged. And pretty honest, everyone else who want to go through and see what we've got to get done and help us get it down there, because the more we've got there, the more people will contribute.
As far as docs are concerned, where are you weakest at right now? That way that'd help people focus a bit. Or where do you feel you're weakest at?
Well, we've got it's mostly down to things like API docs. I mean, that's where people really want to get into stuff. And it's a bit of a problem because sometimes the API changes almost as quickly as we get down to writing it down too. One thing we have got coming in the works is a new public preview system too. We've got a preview system that only works for people who are actually members of the DocSkit group, which is a very limited group. But I understand Gradimax is working on a system where it will be more widely available if you can get it to work, and people will be able to see what they're going to do before they actually make the PR and so on.
That would help tremendously.
Definitely. Anyway, as for the actual issues that we've got at the moment, well, for a start, we'd like more tutorial videos. I mean, particularly ones on, say, server setup and so forth, and also on some on advanced plugin development. We have some from Gabazoo, which is great. We've got those linked in the docs at the moment, and hopefully they'll get people started, but certainly we could use more to get people into it, because people seem to much prefer a video than sitting down and reading a series of documents. Another issue we've got is relating to translated videos too. Obviously, if we have some videos that teach people things, it's great if you're English, but if your first language is not English, it's not so easy to get into. We'd like to be able to have translated videos too. We've had one Russian person put one up on the forum, for example, just to have a look at. And we can't necessarily give that the nod until, for example, we have someone who we trust can review it, who can speak Russian and let us know about it. We're going to have that issue with a lot of languages too, if there are going to be lots of different videos. So for the moment, we can't really provide links to them until we can be sure of their content. Of course, we want more contributors. We don't want our existing staff to burn out too. So, anyone wants to join in, please come in and give us pages, give us suggestions, give us ideas.
Right, and basically on the dev side, we're pretty much the same way, is we don't want to push people too much to the point of burnout. So we're always looking for, people that can come in and help to absolutely help.
Absolutely. I mean, we can use people on all sides of this project.
Disconnected from your channel.
We also we want to have a change log too. This is an issue that there's a few people here I know who can probably help us with this, but we want to be able to present a change log. That'd be excellent. So a lot of users are asking now for what's the changes between the last build and this build, and they've got to sort of shuffle their way through the Git to see what it is. Another thing we're short of, we don't have enough flowcharts.
Okay, I'll perform the summoning ritual. Come, Mo Munfrey. We need you.
As for actual progress on the docs itself, we've got an awful lot of plugin dev docs now. A lot of them have been done. There's more in progress in consultation with Sponge developers, which is excellent. We actually have some of our documenters working with the developers who are writing the APIs in a few cases, so that we can actually get pretty much as close to current as we can get. We're still polishing our user documentation. That's getting a much better look now, and it's much easier for people to get into setting up a server pretty quickly. We've got our IRC and our forum rules on there as well as our most recent staff updates. We've added a docs contributor style guide too, which even grew as it was being added too. So if people want to know, what to add and how to write it and so forth, and what kind of practices we use for composing pages, well, that's all there as well. We even have a contentious best practices doc which mentions NMS and Forge, which has also generated quite a bit of debate. And I'm currently working on a glossary as well as we've got another contributor working on enormous documentation for the enormous data API. One thing we might want to add to is a Spongy page, the history of Spongy, and possibly some downloadable art assets too for those people who want to help further the cause of Sponge. I think that about sums up all the stuff I had to say about the docs at the moment, but if anyone's got any questions, lay into me.
Okay. I think that sounds about good. And obviously, if anyone wants to come and help out where the docs are concerned, you're welcome to join the channel Sponge Docs on Esper. And you can reach out with the docs guys, and I'm sure they'll put you to work somewhere.
All contributions are definitely appreciated.
Okay, so moving on a little bit now, I believe that I will turn this over to Prague, who can discuss a little bit about our how our build management works, as well as speak about some changes coming in the future that people have been asking for, such as change logs.
So I would have had a lot more done on this already. Unfortunately, I was told about 2 weeks ago that I'm being forced to move to a different part of my dorm due to maintenance at my school for the next term. So it will take a little bit of time, but I will definitely get it done. So the changelog system is a little complicated, just because the way I'm building this index system, and I do use it for FTB's launcher builds as well, that it's designed to be agnostic and not be very specific to our infrastructure, so I need to support several different things in order to do that. So I did start taking a look at it the other night. But the plan is to inline the change logs for the specific builds inside of the actual list. If somebody can pull up the actual downloads page, that might help.
Yeah, if you want to pull that up real quick, Gabzo.
So it's all being worked on, and the bug regarding this, there's somebody who's looking at the API download page for some reason. That's part of the fixes I've got open at the moment on my local copy that I haven't tested. So basically, in the middle there, the plan is to have change logs embedded in that center section. And you can see the bug that I was referring to here is that it doesn't, if you actually look at it for the API, it won't actually properly generate it doesn't update the links properly, which is a bug that I'm working on fixing. So you do see here that there are lists of all the different builds, and those of you who are curious, I will, once I'm done talking, post the link in chat for how to download that.
Okay. I was trying to think. I think maybe the changelog is the only one that is that pretty much the only thing that we were looking to do with this page, or did you have anything in mind in the future?
The only other big thing that I wanted to do is make it a little more, was have it so that you can tell it when you added an additional artifact, so that it doesn't try to continuously look for those artifacts that don't exist until later builds in the changelogs page. Because, for example, when we had a deobfuscated build, I don't need it checking 500 builds for an artifact that doesn't exist. It takes way too long. And a couple other tweaks to make it run quicker.
Okay. So that sounds pretty good. I think that would solve most everyone's concerns with the page. I mean, we might come back later and fancy it up.
And it's all
stylize it a little bit, but the functionality would definitely be there.
Yeah, and I linked in there. We set it up when I designed this. I set up a very terrible looking index page, and then one of the somebody on the website, I fed them the template, and they just used they just gave this generic mustache template, Granimax, now that I'm actually looking at it, that uses UIKit just to give a simple looking GUI. But as I said, it's very flexible, and we will add in here, a changelog element that will be able to be placed in here for those when the changelog is ready. It will be added into the templates.
Okay. I think that, for the most part, that covers that right there.
And those people are wondering, this isn't just a sponge thing. The builds, and once we make this next round of fixes, we will set up auto builds for repo indexer and an index page for that as well. That is on my to-do list of things for the next week or two. And I'm moving next weekend, so it will probably be by the next Data Sponge. I'm hoping to have all these changes made, some sooner than later. For example, the fix to the API builds, that I'll have done at some point this evening.
Right. Okay, that sounds good.
I just need to test it locally.
Absolutely. I would say, let me see here. Let's see what else is on our itinerary before we go to the actual dev server. We're going to discuss a little bit about Sponge Web updates. But I'm not entirely sure if Gradimax is here with us. I don't think that he is right now. Okay.
Doesn't appear to be so.
All right. So I think what we'll do is we'll actually kick off and talk a little bit about the website too.
He said he'll be back in a little bit.
Okay, sounds good.
He should be back in about 10 minutes.
Okay. If you want to discuss a little bit about any upcoming changes for the website that you have planned, Owen, as well as some changes that have been made to the community portion of things, we typically never get a chance to really talk about that at State of Sponge, but that's a very active portion of the project.
Very true. With regards to the website, we've had a redesign plan for quite some time, which is being done by Cornigan. Currently, I'm not sure as to the status of that. I haven't been following as much as I should be, but hopefully we should be able to have a website redesigned sometime around Minecon, though no promises on that. With regards to the forums, they've been quite active of late. Basically, since we launched the Sponge dev build, we've seen a rough doubling to tripling of traffic, which shows that there's been a huge deal of interest in the entire project. Since the dev build, we also created our plugin releases and WIP plugin subcategories, which have also seen quite a bit of work put into them. We've got several new threads regarding plugins and quite a few interesting ones being ported over, such as Craftbook and Permissions X, Craft Economy, all major plugins that we've seen from Bucket. The one thing that I have been trying to point out to people, and some people still haven't quite understood, is the fact that these categories are in fact simply temporary measures while we wait for Gradimax to complete the ore project. So once the ore is done, we will have a much nicer place for everyone to store their plugins and such. For now, however, we have no place other than the forums to put them. So I understand some people don't particularly like it, and I agree it is somewhat less than optimal situation, but it's simply there to allow us to have the time to come up with a really nice solution that we have little doubt that everyone will love. Further than that, we have also after much deliberation, we've effectively made the choice to remove the regular category from the forums. We felt that it didn't really fit in with the way we saw the community. A lot of people were very helpful, sometimes a little bit too enthusiastic to change things, but in future we're making sure that forums moderation is handled specifically by the forum moderators, just to prevent any well-intentioned errors. So lots of people have been putting work in, and it's great that they've really been wanting to help out, but with these sorts of systems, there's a lot of miscommunication. So we've decided to restrict any sort of actual moderation duties specifically to those people we put in charge of the forums, effectively so that we can make sure that everyone knows what is happening, and just keep everyone who has that much power to change threads, move them around, edit them, that they all know the rules completely and know how they should go about these things.
Yeah, and that makes sense too. It was kind of an oversight on our part because we certainly didn't want anyone to be able to just move threads around. And it wasn't necessarily anything that we had against any particular one person. It's just kind of one of those things that once that gets started, it's really difficult to keep that
Rein
from
in.
kind of keep it from spiraling out of control.
Yeah, again, the majority of the issues I don't think any issues have really been due to malice. It's just well-intentioned, but not quite knowing what the correct procedure is to deal with these things. So we've basically decided to swap to the old system of users and moderators, and hopefully that will work in future. Now, we are also going to have to look into bringing some new moderators on board at some point. We're expecting another huge surge in traffic post Minecon, so we will likely be on the lookout then. But for now, our moderation team has been well and truly able to keep up with everything. Thanks to Ferris Grimm for joining it, by the way. He's been very helpful with it all.
And just to reiterate too, whereas we are looking for people to come in and do moderation, that doesn't mean that you can start slamming Owen's PM with 100 PMs a day.
Yeah, if we want you to join the team, we will send you a message. Now, if you feel like you've been working really hard, been really good, and haven't received a message, generally that isn't your fault. Either we haven't quite noticed, which is just an issue on our part, or we feel that you're better off in the role that you're currently doing. So, for instance, there are obviously some people who are great, just excellent communicators and such, and we feel like bringing them onto the team could bring into issues of conflict of interest and such. So, quite often, there are lots of things to be considered when we hire people as moderators. So, don't feel bad if your name isn't on the list, and we'll just come to you, basically, if we feel that you're the suitable material. And as always, no obligations and such. Aside from that, I think that's most of the stuff regarding the forum/website of things.
Okay, that sounds good. And we'll be definitely looking forward to the website changes that we're going to do and in regards to the new look and feel. That's going to look awesome. So at this point, the next thing I want to do is turn this over to Gradimax and have him talk about some of the future changes that we are going to look into putting into ore as we continue to think about what we want to do with the product and where we want to take it.
Hi, so I've been mostly focusing on API development for the past couple of weeks, and I haven't been able to touch ore, basically. Although, yeah, someone did mention in the chat that you can run your own instance. That was just a fun thing that I tested. But it speaks to the fact that ore is open source software, and anyone should be able to, eventually set up something where they can run their own instance and they can manage projects on their own, and there doesn't have to be a central instance that is completely controlled by Sponge. But it is useful in some ways. So, in addition to the features that we already have, like basic project management and version management, what we eventually want to do is expose ore as a Maven repository, which is fantastic for any plugin developers who either need dependencies or deploy using Maven, because it means that they can basically not have to touch ore while they're working on their plugin. They can work with the default Maven toolkit, like deploying directly to ore and downloading plugins from ore. So, in addition to only needing to work with Maven instead of some kind of web interface, they don't need to host Maven repositories on their own. So OR will be able to function as a Maven repository for, downloading dependencies and that kind of thing, which we think is going to be a very useful feature. And because of the way the project is designed, it very easily adapts to the whole way that Maven namespace is stuff. Another feature that is going to be coming soon is discussions. So the current forums are a good enough place for people to discuss their plugins. You can, talk about it in a single thread. But eventually what we want to do is kind of merge the issue tracking system with how the discourse forums work, and eventually have some kind of forum-like software for each plugin that will be simple and easy to use and customizable, to a certain extent, basically so that we're able to give plugin developers the tools they need to manage the community around their plugin. That is the basic, long-term goal of the project, to make it easier for you to manage your plugin, the community around your plugin, so you can spend more time developing cool features than having to deal with distributing versions and hosting files and that kind of thing.
Was it one of our goals to allow someone to have basically a dependency in a Gradle file for OR, and it will actually pull down plugin dependencies?
I mean, you don't have a dependency to OR itself, but yes, you can say, I want, I don't know, PEX, for instance. I'm going to say PEX is hosted on OR, and it's available. So you can download it through Maven, no problem, and you don't have to set anything up. Just the repository, yeah.
That would be pretty handy right there.
There's a lot of opportunity for interesting directions that this project can go in, and that is, it's completely open source and everyone can contribute. I'm hoping that when I get more time to develop it directly, that more people will, hop on and work on some interesting features, because it can be taken in a lot of directions. And we are planning to have a good enough, stable enough version for people to really start using to host their Sponge plugins by Minecon.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot. I feel like OR is going to be a massive part of the Sponge platform, so I'm very interested to see where it's all taken.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely awesome. I think that's going to be one of the best offerings that we can give people.
Yeah, and it's not just restricted to Sponge plugins, actually. You can, it's very easy to extend it to work on multiple platforms, which we haven't really worked anything out with regards to Forge, but, it's extensible for that kind of thing. So it can adapt for the future and not just for Sponge plugins.
Sounds great.
And please do keep in mind we don't have plans regarding past Sponge plugins at the moment.
Yeah, I mentioned that. We haven't really talked about it. It's just the system is capable of doing so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it. I can't really think of anything else. There's a sponsors page they made a while back. It might just be interesting to look at as a peek into what we're hoping to do with the eventual site unification. So it's just like a kind of a different visual style we're going for that's more subdued. So hopefully, I will be finishing up with the API work soon, so that I can get started working on the web stuff and get that all up to par with how the rest of the project has been progressing.
Once the claws are in you of the API, they never let go.
Yeah.
I think that's about it for that section.
Yep, and I think that's mostly it with what we were going to discuss on the project management side of things today. The one thing that I do want to talk about as well is a couple people have asked me basically where the vanilla dev builds are out too, and this is something I completely skipped my mind when we were talking about the implementation. the vanilla dev builds ride on more than a couple of things. Uh, the first one is the unified world changes. Now, I spoke just a little bit about on it. As I mentioned before, I just got that working literally about 15 minutes before we were starting to put everything together for State of Sponge. So obviously, I wasn't even at a point to even think about trying to show it all publicly, because I'm pretty sure that it's going to collapse in one way or another, because it's not been tested. The next thing is once I have that into place, I have to make sure that it works for Sponge Vanilla as well too. I have to make sure that Sponge Vanilla is very unique in the fact that a lot of the world stuff that's in Forge is not there, because the base game assumes that it's only going to be the 3 dimensions, which is overworld, nether, and the end, and that's it. There's nothing else to it. And I have to sit there and fix it so it will work for that perspective. The biggest part was making sure that the stuff actually works from Commons perspective, and that seems to be up and functioning, quote unquote. And now I have to just test it and get it up and working for everything else. So that's the first one. The second one, there is a few core events that are not entirely right on vanilla or still need to be fired. The last one of those is the player place block event. I didn't get a chance to finish that before I started getting myself head deep within unified world changes, but that's coming after I can verify that that's all up and working. The last part is we kind of want to wait and do vanilla dev builds once MCP and Forge have been updated to 1.8.7 or whatever it's going to be at this point, considering they keep pushing releases. Due to the fact of all the security updates that they did. Otherwise, we would have to basically do what Forge did in vanilla, which is backport those patches. And I'm not completely against doing that, but it's in this case that we're so heavy in development, it's not imperative that I push out a vanilla dev build right this moment. So obviously I can't truly give an ETA on it, and I can't tell you that it's going to happen tomorrow. But what I can say is that I'm getting pretty close for those to actually be up and usable. And for those of you that like living on the bleeding edge, obviously you can clone the vanilla repo and build it, and you can run with it. A lot of the stuff that you'll see me post across channels is coming from the vanilla dev server, because that's generally the one that I'm working on right now and testing with. Generally, I don't have to poke the Forge side of things too much while I'm getting some of the unification stuff done. Other than that, I think at this point we're probably going to start turning things over to Q&A and pulling in questions from the community. While that's going on, we're going to do some additional legwork on our end real quick and see if we can get our dev testing server up and have the public start joining and checking things out. So if you want to kind of take the reins, Owen, and start looking around for people asking questions.
Will do. I'll obviously take a few seconds for people to start asking questions in the chat. So I'll let you know when we see them. And apparently we don't seem to be getting any at this point. So I'll probably go with a few generic ones that we'll likely see at any potential Minecon panel. So first off, how can Sponge help where others haven't, or other projects haven't been able to help?
How can Sponge help where other projects have not been able to help? Well, that's kind of a loaded question. because there's many different responses that can be made towards it. I think one of the biggest perks, or I should say, maybe philosophies at this point, where this project has over other ones, is the fact that we're more willing to do our best to expose more parts of the game, or to embrace some parts that are kind of taboo by everyone else. Probably one of the biggest proofs, or I should say evidence from our perspective to prove that, is our willingness to actually go so far as to expose all the AI to the plugin API, which is kind of a pet project of mine that I would like to start on sooner than later. I think that's going to be a huge boon, and I really hope that I'm going to have something tangible to show at State of Sponge 5 with that up and working, because I think everyone will just be absolutely amazed to be able to basically spawn your own kind of custom zombie. It'll look like a zombie, but maybe you want the zombie to follow you with a flower because he's decided that his days of running into people and trying to kill them are over with, and it's now time to hand out flowers. And stuff like that. It's just, it sounds simple, but it's kind of complex in the background. And in the past, if you ever wanted to try and do anything with AI, you kind of felt secluded on a street corner because it didn't seem like anyone wanted to fool with it. And that's something that I want to push really, really hard, is to expose a lot of stuff that wasn't wanting to be exposed in the past, so long as we don't essentially put ourselves in a tight spot where what we expose turns into a huge security vulnerability or something like that. It's probably one of the biggest reasons why, and I know a lot of people have asked me in the past, but one of the biggest reasons why I would be, I'm still against doing anything like protocol lib within Sponge itself, due to how much of abuse it can be done. And if you're needing to use something like protocol lib, then you would definitely need to reach out to us and talk to us, because we can probably do what you're wanting to do with it in Sponge itself and expose it to the API. And that kind of brings me to the next point, that we've been far, far more receptive to people wanting to get XYZ feature into Sponge API. And we will do whatever we can to work with you and get that in there, or let you know there's an issue with what you're wanting, and we'll compromise as much as we can. So I think that's kind of a mindset which a lot of other projects may have had at one point or another, or may have not had, and we've kind of stuck with our guns on it since the very beginning.
That's a lot of what that discussion I had on the best practices page revolved around, what to do about NMS, and should we use it, and should we even mention it.
And another thing too is I want to make it clear, because I know some people are really, really afraid to come in like our channel and talk about a plugin that they're wanting to do that's in MS. I am well aware, because I have worked on projects that have used Bucket in the past and have had to use MMS. I understand why it's used, and I understand the fact that people don't have a choice. There's just some things that cannot be within the API. A good example is someone's wanting to use all the stuff that we do so good in Sponge, but they're wanting to add a custom entity. Sponge is made to work with mods, and that's the reason why we even started the whole Sponge project as a Forge Core mod. And so it's in our best benefit to assist people that are trying to use our stuff where mods are concerned. Obviously, we can't give you the full support, as in people that would be using our plugin API without any Minecraft internals. We're certainly not going to take you and cast you out into a fire if you come in our channels. And I've seen a couple of people that have been very hesitant to. It's kind of like you have that person that asks questions, and they're asking really kind of generic roundabout questions, and once you kind of start, you keep poking and poking, eventually you get to the point to where the person finally just admits it. And I'm just thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, well, yeah, you have a MMS plugin, so what? We can't truly support you, but if you got some questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And I think that's due to the negative reception that people have been given in the past in regards to that. So whereas we don't embrace MMS plugins, we will not shoo you away if you have to do it.
There will always be reasons for going into the Minecraft server jar and plugins and mods. We gladly try to help you as much as we can, but there will be a point where we will have to say that we can't do much more for you.
Right.
And regarding some of the comments about MCP, it takes the MCP/Forge team, it takes them about a day to update MCP and Forge. That's not the reason. The reason that it hasn't been updated yet for some of the later versions is when Mojang does these successive groups of minor releases, they sometimes hold for a bit till it stabilizes, because it's literally somebody spends an entire day straight updating the successive chain of things that need to be updated to update a Minecraft version. And B, there's also some work being done on Forge Gradle right now to make certain things more generic, which will make it easier for us to work with our vanilla stuff, as well as a few other things.
Okay, another question we've got here is basically related to our system where our plugins go in our mods folder, any confusion that may arise. Jiden, if you can just explain why we're using the mods folder.
We're doing that for Unity. On the Forge side, they have the mods folder, and the Sponge mod goes into it, as well as has the Sponge plugins go into it too. So one of the biggest things that you can do, as far as let's go in the future a little bit. Let's go up to, we won't go 1.9. Let's go to 1.10 or whatever they end up calling this update. So 1.10 comes out. At this point, a lot of the build systems with Forge Gradle has been figured out. So we would expect that the MCP portion to be out a lot quicker. And we know that Forge would take longer because Forge they have to update all their hooks, so it takes time. So when that update comes out, you have one or two decisions. If your server relies on Forge mods, then obviously you're going to have to sit and wait, be patient, or attempt to help out if you have the know-how. If your server only uses Sponge plugins, but you like using Forge on your server for certain mods, but you can live without those mods and removing those doesn't cause any problems, then what you can do is you can just swap out the implementation that you're using to vanilla. And the good news about doing that is vanilla would tend to be updated a lot quicker than Sponge portion was, solely for the fact that it has to wait on it. And we want it to be as simple as you just swapping the jar. It shouldn't be any more complicated than that. We shouldn't have to have people to copy over everything in their mods folder over to a plugins folder. And we don't think that there's really anything that's gained from having a mods folder with your Forge mods and having a plugins folder with your Sponge plugins. Because at the end of the day, from the Sponge perspective, there's no difference really between a Forge mod and a Sponge plugin. They're treated as the same within Sponge itself. That's why we ultimately made the call to just we keep it all in one place and just go with it. I've seen the debate a couple of times on the forums. I really don't, there's no good debate that's been done for it. It just seems like based upon principle, it has to be in the plugins folder. And then from a Forge mods perspective, based upon principle, it has to be in the mods folder. And ultimately, we made the choice.
And in addition, some past experience with versions of Forge that had the core mods in separate folders, we found that people, when there are multiple folders for multiple things, a lot of users will get confused and put them in the wrong folder. So we felt that it was a lot easier to just have everything in one place that you don't need to worry about which place to put them in.
Absolutely.
Okay, another question we have here can you guys explain choices on config formats? So this is related to our choice of Hokon rather than alternatives such as YAML or JSON.
Well, JSON doesn't have comments. It struck that out to begin with, so I'll let Gideon go through the YAML versus Hokon bit.
So basically, as Prog just said, JSON was not suitable for use. JSON, great serialization format, just absolutely superb at it. Not really good about being kind of human readable and friendly. YAML is another. YAML was up for discussion as far as formats are concerned. It seems like the community is divided between going with a YAML on one side and then going with something like Hokon in another. And from a project's perspective, basically at some point we have to boil down and decide what's going to be our official config format. And the reason that we do this is for consistency, as in showing if you have 10 plugins and they all create a config file, then on one hand, we want plugin developers to have the freedom to choose how they store their configs. But on the other hand, we want to also give the server administrators the opportunity to know that when I'm going to go modify the configs, this is how I do it. This is the style that must be done in, and they're not going to run into any issues. Now, we're not 100% against any other formats besides Hokon. We have chose Hokon as our official format for the Sponge project, but we don't shy away from people using other formats. It's just the one that is recommended and supported by, well, us. But if someone wants to use YAML, I mean, we're not going to essentially take a gun and shoot you for it.
We have our opinions on the matter, but we're going to respect you.
Right. And make no mistake, this was not 100% inside the team as well too. I'll be the first one to admit that Hokon was definitely not. I would not use Hokon day to day, but I can see the advantages over it, and I see how it kind of is a happy marriage between some of the strictness of YAML and some of the good serialization of, say, JSON. So, and where I'm concerned, and this may just stem from being a part of Bucket for a while and being part of other projects, but I would tend to work in a YAML file any day of the week. But then you have others who absolutely just despise YAML to no end and would like to see it burn, and that's fine. Everyone is welcome to that opinion, and they're welcome to choose what they want.
We do, though, recommend, if you are using one of the other formats that is supported by Configurate, we do recommend you work through Configurate. Just in the long run, if you do decide to embrace Hokon or one of the other formats that we do support, it makes your life easier in the long run. Other developers, if your project is handed off. So we do absolutely recommend using that. Regarding, I know there had been a couple questions floating around about the Configurate JSON parser. At the moment, it's built against a newer version of JSON. The JSON library then is the JSON specific parser. There are two libraries in Java for JSON. We use JSON, which is what Mojang uses. And due to some library issues that are being worked on, we can't ship that at the moment.
One thing that we may end up doing, and I have to say may right here, is to prevent people from having, let's say that we have 5 people that end up using YAML, and they all decide to do a plugin, and they all shade configure-YAML into their plugin, which basically means taking the classes that they use, and they'll be available from where the plugin's perspective. The one thing that we could honestly do would be to consider having the API to shade the YAML stuff but that's
The
still up
implementation.
for debate. The implementation is to have the implementation shade the YAML stuff, but that's still it's still one of those things that comes up with debate, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's a matter of, the debates are put on the table, and then the decision is ultimately made. And I just want to make sure that everyone is well aware of that. Just because we have chosen Hocon doesn't mean that we have essentially said that we're not going to support you if you use anything else. Because ultimately, if you come up in the channel and you show me a YAML file, then I'm probably going to be able to support you better and be able to do so a lot quicker than if you showed me a Hocon file. And that's going to be the opposite for other people in the channel. It's just one of those things.
And do keep in mind, though, we do ask, though, that before you just say, I'm going to stick using YAML, spend the 30 seconds looking at Hocon before you decide to go to YAML or another format. You might find you like it better. It's absolutely worth 30 seconds of your time.
Are there text editors that have support for Hocon?
I believe there are. I think there's an Atom extension for it. But
I'm thinking of Notepad++, for example.
I'm not 100% sure on that.
Sublime has it.
No, Sublime has it because I've used it in Sublime.
Okay, another question here. How can switching to Sponge affect players on my server?
It won't affect your players at all. It really depends upon what you're doing, too.
Your 20 minutes of downtime, you're going to need to switch out jars and fix your configs is about all that's going to affect your players.
Oh, and here's another one. What version of Java do I need to run Sponge?
Need at least Java 6.
Oh, Lordy.
And now there has been a lot of contention over supporting all this.
We do recommend you use Java 8 on your computers and your servers because that's the one that Oracle is providing security fixes for.
The only one that's not end of life, for God's sake.
Actually, technically, that's not 100% true if you're an enterprise customer. However,
it should be back compatible with everything anyway, which isn't a problem.
It's compatible with everything. We do recommend you use Java 8. There are some plugins that will only support 7 or 8. So we do always recommend you use the latest version of Java provided by Oracle that your hardware supports. ETAs and stable releases we are not providing at this time, even though I can see a Kappa icon half on my screen.
Another question here. We just have, why do you call Sponge and the vanilla version Sponge Vanilla? Why not Sponge
Boy,
Forge?
everyone just coming with the hard questions today now, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Speaking of
it's probably
areas of contention.
Well, there's a long backstory to it, and really the biggest thing it stems from is when this project first started, there was no intention to put the Sponge layer on anything from Sponge's perspective, the Sponge project that is, on anything else except for Forge. And that is still our primary focus at this point, is to be the API layer on top of Forge. But since then, the technology of Mixin progressed in such a way that everyone did not expect it where Mixin was concerned. Mixin started as just the idea of getting our changes on top of Minecraft base classes, and it has really exploded into basically the de facto standard of, I have to use the words carefully here, of sanely putting your changes on a bytecode level into Minecraft itself.
A lot of project. There are a bunch of projects that have moved over to it, and a couple that are investigating doing such.
Absolutely. Because if you've ever done raw bytecode before and you look at Mixin, it's daylight and dark. It's like Mixin is one of those little yellow books for dummies on how to do bytecode engineering. It has its quirks, but once you know how to use it correctly, it's so powerful. And really, there's nothing in this game, honestly, that you can't touch, it seems. There's probably a couple of things, but they're insignificant compared to everything else.
I'm sure there's a good flowchart that explains it.
Probably is. There's probably about 5 of
there
those.
is.
I mean, other than that, there was at a point in which, obviously, the Sponge Vanilla project was at one time named Granite. It was done by a side group of folks, Voltasol, Azur's Nation, JCKF, and a couple of their other contributors. And basically, what happened was, generally, when you do a project like this, you have the official implementation, and then after that, you have people that will try and do implementations on the side. And generally, what happens with implementations on the side is either one or two things will happen. They will keep up and actually build an implementation that can rival your own, or if not necessarily rival, it's actually usable, which for a while there, that's what was happening with Granite. It was actually, it was usable. They shown that they could do it on vanilla. The second one was, or I should say the other mechanism would be they don't actually keep up and then they eventually die off. So the one thing with Granite is I've always been in favor of a strictly vanilla server with plugins. I'm not one to use Forge mods. I'm not one to try and do Forge stuff with the client. And so there was a huge advantage from my perspective to get it up and going on vanilla as an API layer. So I would honestly say that at first it was it was more selfish decision than anything else, because I wanted to be able to run it free and clear from Forge and just have the cleanest and quite possibly the meanest Minecraft server you can do, especially if all of your stuff is just bytecode engineered, which means you just have the base game with whatever performance improvements you decide to do. But over time, it was interesting. It actually graduated into something that more than a couple people have really started looking forward to. They've wanted to have something that was like Craft Bucket, where Craft Bucket was the only quote-unquote modification, and Bucket was the only way to do the changes for the base game. No other modifications could be done. And at this point, I think it's really turned into a major part of our project, if not necessarily the primary focus. As far as names, though, at this point we started in September of last year. We are beginning June now. I mean, that puts us at, let's see here.
That's about 9 months or so?
Right, 9 months into it. So when you're doing a major open source project, any time that a name change comes up is terrifying, because in the past, name changes have been known to completely destroy a project, because you'll have infighting of people that have gotten used to the name that you have and like it, and people that see that there is a need to switch that name because it no longer makes sense. And and even though we've definitely went back and forth and we've did the debates, that's kind of has been the thing that's really happened with us too, is that the concept of a name change has definitely come up before, because there's definitely some strong arguments into renaming Sponge into something like Sponge Forge, for example, so it matches the sister project Sponge Vanilla. Another thing too is I know the people in the Docs project would probably get tired of, or are probably tired of having to write Sponge and then in parentheses mod or core mod or Sponge in parentheses and do Forge. So they definitely have an argument for the change to Sponge Forge. But then we have people on the side that have an argument to keep it as Sponge due to the fact it's kind of familiar now and people know about Sponge as being on Forge. It's really one of it's a really hard thing to judge to do it.
And do keep in mind, folks, there are a good 20 or 30 other reasons in both directions that we're not going to mention. I mean, there are also discussions in the past about projects that have had Forge in the name and led tech support requests to accidentally go to the Forge team and things like that we're trying to avoid here. And one thing I don't know if we discussed this time around is what things wouldn't find their way into vanilla if they're ever implemented, or do we want to leave that for next time?
I think Juden's died on us now.
Possibly. I mean, other than that, I'm not going to say at this time if Sponge is going to get a rename or not. With an open source project, there's really nothing that, unless for some reason you arbitrarily restrict yourself to, there's really nothing that's never in the cards. I mean, anything is possible when you have a group of people come together to work on something, and you have people come and go and such like that. So it's possible that it might eventually happen. I will say that if it was to happen, and I'm not saying that it is going to, but if it was, then we most likely would make the decision to do it more sooner than later. Because obviously, as time goes on, it's going to become incredibly challenging to do a name change. Because as more people use your product, your possibility of doing a name change plummets more and more.
I'd say it's fair to say if we did make such a name change on the Forge end, it would be by the end of the summer. Past that, I'd say we would absolutely not be considering doing such a thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I even went as far as thinking that if we were going to do something like that, we would do it before Minecon, and if it wasn't done before Minecon, then that's it. We're going with it. We're moving on.
So at the next State of Sponge, we'll have more discussions on naming, but if we
we'll tell you right then and there if it's ever going to change. We'll essentially say, this is what it is. This is the new name. We're going with it. Otherwise, we'll tell you like this is our final name. We're sticking with this, and we're going to move on.
And the discussions on this will most likely not be in public regarding the naming.
Whatever it is, it'll be obvious anyway, so it shouldn't really be a problem.
Yeah, everyone will know at some point.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely announce it, but we definitely wouldn't do it the night before because it's also not a simple matter to change the name. It actually does take a little bit of time. It's not change the name on the repo and you're done.
There's 30 or 40 places it's referenced.
Right. Someone from the docs repo is probably going to start crying because that's going to take a little bit of time to do that. And that's still scratching the surface. We still have other spots all over the place that it had to be done in.
That's one of the things that comes up in the docs regularly anyway, whether we should, use brackets core mod or capitalized core mod or just Sponge mod.
If we haven't made a decision about that after the stream, let's have a discussion.
Possibly, yeah.
I know there were a couple things in chat, and I've also seen an IRC over the last week about bungee cord compatibility. Team members have in the past tested compatibility. The Forge mod does work with bungee cord. I don't know if we've tested the vanilla side yet. But we will at least make some attempt to make sure that this stuff stays compatible with bungee cord and speak to the bungee cord team if issues do arise.
Does that mean actually adding API for it?
API not necessarily. API we can discuss, but it will physically run with bungee cord present.
Because if it's a conscious decision, and I think it's probably fair to mention that in the docs, that it's deliberately made compatible for it.
Yeah, the docs, and we will be working on a docs page to mention bungee cord in some form, because I'm sick of answering questions about it.
What about from the other
That's
side?
Basically the reason
are they doing
for
anything
the
on that
existence.
Yes,
hey!
we'll speak to the Bungee Core team at some point.
Not
and see what we'd like
not to
do.
cut you guys off, but it looks like Gavizo has got himself a friend.
Oh, humans are working.
Yep.
Yes, the vanilla implementation will work with Bungee Core in some form at some point.
Yeah, it only took 8 server crashes to get humans working.
Okay, so we should hopefully be able to open up the server relatively soon.
Yeah, and
Is it
when
me,
we
or
do
did the-
open up the server, please do not post the link in chat. One of the moderators will add a command. Regarding Bungee Cord, we will discuss the extent of that will be discussed between the Sponge team and the Bungee Cord developers about how we want to handle making sure that there aren't issues with offline mode and things like that. Because we do know that a lot of people who want to use multiple servers together are going to be using Bungee Cord.
And there
There
we
it
go.
goes!
So what's the crash count up to now?
I think that was the 9th one.
That wasn't
You're
a
on the
crash,
cutting
though.
edge
That
here.
was merely a timeout.
Can somebody put the plugin list in a paste bin, please? For chat.
This is what happens when we develop plugins and patches literally during the state of Sponge.
Yeah, this isn't the first State of Sponge where we've had custom code blank on the server. I think the first one had a very custom version. Several others have as well.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of pressure when Jeden's talking, introducing everybody, programming at the same time, trying to get builds over to the people who are hosting the servers.
Yes, it's a very interesting experience.
We're literally on the cutting edge, people.
Yeah, it shows just how fast development is actually going, that even during State of Sponge, we're just still right at it.
And I just put in chat for anyone curious. This is the plugin list for this server at the moment. Yes, and that's why, as I said, at the moment it does. The Forge implementation does work with Bungee Cord. So if somebody wanted to have a test server running Sponge inside of their network, you're more than welcome to. It does work. And if you do notice compatibility issues between Sponge and Bungee Cord, please report them to us first, because we do all sorts of crazy things that could be breaking just about everything under the sun.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of things going on.
Anyone else have any other questions in chat? There are 68 people in here. There's no way nobody else has questions.
No, evidently not that many questions. I think the Docs team must have done an excellent job then.
Congratulations, we can all go home now.
Yay.
No, get back to work.
No.
No rest for the wicked. Yes, if you haven't noticed, the Docs team is probably the most underpaid. Well, given that no one gets paid,
Paid?
the most overworked section of the community.
So, basically, the plugin regarding the question about what's going to be different between the Forge and vanilla implementations, at the end of the day, we'll tell you all the stuff that you can do with Bucket and previous platforms will be able to be done within both. Once we think about starting to add client compatibility, the dev team will have to have further discussions about how we want to handle that. Sponge Vanilla, as we said earlier, those builds will not be available for yet.
Yeah, it's my intention to definitely have them before Minecon.
Will we have Minecraft version 1.88 before Minecon as well?
Well, as people find security fixes and report them to Mojang, it's very possible.
Looks like the server timed out again.
If you want to be using stuff like Lightloader or Forge on your server, you need to be using the Forge-based implementation. Compatibility for other platforms like Lightloader will only be provided on the Forge side.
Here's another question. How complete is the Sponge API relative to the Bucket API?
There's actually some things in which we have more than Bucket does. There's some things that I think that are not as polished as Bucket. I would say on a one-to-one layer, most of the stuff that Bucket has we do too.
So roughly feature equal at this stage.
I would say, probably, based upon what we've seen.
Regarding other JVM languages, Scala and Java are currently compatible. Kotlin is something that we will definitely look into because I've seen it done with Forge mods recently. And we can look into rolling that support in. Speaking of the mod developer in question, trying to roll that support in the Sponge. Groovy. I know there were some issues with Groovy. I'm not sure to the extent that I would have to speak to Abrar Syed about.
What about closure?
If you don't mind me interjecting real quick, for anybody in chat, if you guys want to go ahead and look at the Sponge cookbooks, I believe it was Gabazoo actually has a developed Scala version of his Fireball plugin, which you can take a look at, see how Scala works, and it is 100% compatible with our Java loader.
Yeah, and just in general, on the Forge implementation, Scala is currently available. The version on that we will make sure is mentioned in docs at some point. Just remind me after the stream is going on, I'll get you the exact version number. Regarding other alternatives, we will try to do our best to let people know what you can and can't use.
Well, humans are definitely causing a lot of issues with the test server.
Roll back the changes.
Excise.
And regarding some of the client-side stuff, a lot of stuff working between Forge, Lightloader, things like that, is definitely being worked on. But in general, if it's compatible with Forge, it's likely that it will work with Sponge, but we can't guarantee it. Yeah, do not try to the Sponge implementations with a different build than the number listed. It will most likely fail on you.
There you go, Prog. This doc staff have already made a Bungie court issue for you on the docs.
Yes, I saw the email pop up on my screen.
They're fast, aren't they?
Yeah, regarding other JVM languages, we will make sure that it is possible to support other languages. We might consider making a plugin just that has for a couple of them that have the physical files for it. But what we will support out of the box, other than Java and most likely Scala, we will discuss.
Uh-oh. This doesn't look good. Oh, no. No.
Yeah, and if you do notice, cookbook plugins that don't work with the latest versions of the API, do let us know. We do make changes and occasionally miss things in the cookbooks.
How much memory is allocated to the server?
A lot.
Okay.
Was it like 16 gigs or something?
Somebody get a graph on that.
We might need to tweak the JVM parameters.
I'm giving it 10, it's using 1.
And
Maybe-
like humans do, they consume all possible resources, don't they?
Yeah, maybe we should save the humans
But it's not the
test
humans,
until
though.
next State Sponge. It's not the humans?
No.
Now, what's it choking on now?
What's going on?
Let's try this. I just disabled pretty much all the plugins.
Okay, everything bar humans.
Welcome to active development.
Because I can't reproduce this locally. That's why I know it's not them. They actually work just fine locally.
Can somebody zip up the plugins and config folder on that server, please?
You know, I hate to point fingers, but I think it might actually be Craftbook. Because earlier, whenever I pressed assign, it seemed to lag quite a bit until it pushed the action through.
It appears to be something when players are joining.
Craftbook doesn't do anything when players are joining. However, it does stuff when chunks are loading.
Ooh.
If you noticed when people were joining, you'd see their name didn't have the prefix for a little bit, so my plugin didn't have a chance to run. Something was tying up the server.
That's a good point.
Regarding WorldGen API?
Server's up with like no plugins. Let's try it now. WorldGen is coming.
Yep,
Soon?
it's not them.
Soon TM.
They're working just fine.
And we are working, regarding some of the WorldGen API stuff, we have spoken to a couple of Forge mod developers who do work with WorldGen heavily to do some of that. And we're going to make sure that it is capable of handling retroactive generation and things like that as well.
Yeah, we've been working with developers from plugins such as Terrain Control.
We do have
and
timing support.
Biomes of
Do we not?
Plenty.
Hey, Demon,
Could probably run that.
you could probably put you could put the worlds test and the worlds editing, or maybe it's just worlds test that you had.
Is it me or is it just frozen?
Yeah, that was a crash. I love crashes.
We will let you know when the IPs actually happen.
Life at the bleeding edge.
Currently, the life of the bleeding edge actually feels like a bleeding edge.
Hey, it's not exciting unless it's crashing.
Well, maybe if you're looking at the console, but for me, a crash is just constantly looking at logging in and cancel.
Or not even that. Just constantly trying to refresh.
Yeah, that's the one. JavaNet connection exception, connection refused, no further information.
That crash looks like it may have been an actual human-related exception, by the way. It's interesting.
Let me look at that real quick.
Somebody post the logs to plugin development. Get some help from the community.
Someone compile a copy of World's Test and throw it to me.
Isn't that the one for Skylands, right?
Yeah.
Very excited about Skylands. That should be quite interesting to see.
What's Skylands again?
We'll discuss it when we can show it.
Yeah, what the name implies. And no, there isn't a Facebook page for Sponge. It just doesn't really cater to the same kind of community as our Twitter. Since the majority of the Minecraft community is on Twitter, we're sticking with that.
On screen, Gabazoo is giving a in-depth Git tutorial.
Go, Gabazoo, go.
Nothing like Git submodules.
Mac versus Windows? Well,
How about
obviously
no?
Gabazoo prefers Mac.
No, just no.
Don't do this. Not now. Please, no. I mean, honestly, everyone knows Linux is the best.
We'll go ahead and
No.
Demon, we can go ahead and get things back up with the Skyline stuff, and we'll have to take a look at what's going on in that method
So
and
I
why
need
it's
a copy
getting
of
that
World
issue.
Test.
Oh,
I could just show people locally,
Can do that too.
though I don't have. Wait, no, I do.
Solaris, please, mate. Oh, Ferris Grim appears to be heading off. See you, mate.
Yep, see ya. I'll probably be back a bit later, but I've I just gotta get to work. You guys will probably see me on the forums, and thanks for watching. It was the first SOS I've actually been able to attend.
Buddy disconnected from your channel.
Well, while we're working on developing this stuff, I'd like to ask everyone, what sort of things would you like to see us do at Minecon? Like at our panel or at our booth? What would you like to see?
Who's using the Voxabox account? Because that looks like sounds like somebody on staff.
That's me.
if you want to join my machine, Gabazo, you can, because it's already up and going.
What's your IP again?
I'll paste it to you in chat.
Okay, let's not say that out loud.
Yeah, I'm wondering about the logistics of recruiting plugin devs at Minecon. Basically, the best thing we can do there is just let everyone know how Sponge can help them, and hopefully they decide to work with it. But we can't force anyone to do anything, alas.
And while I won't be at Minecon, if you do run into members of the Sponge team and you have questions, do feel free to ask. Even if they don't know, they can always try to make sure that we do answer them in the next Data Sponge.
Yeah, if we don't know your questions, we'll just send them off to the docs team. They don't have that much work to do as it is.
You shall buy a new shredder.
But at present, I believe the members of the staff attending so far are Jaden, myself, Gabazoo, me4502, Gratimax, Azurius Nation, Luke GB, Mumfrey, and I'm sure I've forgotten someone. But anyhow, there'll be a fair few of us there. And even if we don't end up getting a booth or panel, we'll certainly be around and you'll be able to tell who we are quite easily. We're hoping to have a few shirts printed off for the event.
Doesn't seem to be the humans, I believe. Because they seem to be working fine here.
Maybe it's the build of the server.
I have no idea. I'm running whatever the
Gordon Bennett.
Right
What was
now,
It's
what's
definitely
happening?
working.
Yeah, right now what's happening is I have my armada of humans that go to war against anyone that's unfortunately happens to be in survival mode or other
They're deadly
humans
accurate.
that I'm not the owner of. Yes, they are very accurate. Some of them spawn with diamond swords, some of them spawn with bows, some of them just take their fist and beat the crap out of people.
They'll swim.
They are quite effective, though.
They'll swim. They'll attack.
And when they're
anything.
done, they come and follow me around again. Because I am their master.
Those things are incredibly annoying.
I can make them more
Especially
annoying.
when I was
That's
on
pretty
there
cool.
about Opt.
They will also teleport to you. As you can see, they keep warping over here. There's a whole bunch of Grinches that just showed up. This is unacceptable.
Oh no, you went and created Skynet? Really?
Yeah, unfortunately, if they see other players around, you will get KO'd and destroyed.
Oh no, they're after me. Help! Help! Ah!
So who's gonna win, the Jedans or the Dead Mouse?
It depends if they decide to stop looking
3
at me
down.
for once. Because generally they just like looking at you, and then they'll go and hit someone.
Seems like there's an issue with the priorities then.
The vanilla AI system is not fantastic, to say the least. The only problem with if your plan, Gradimax, is they warp back to you, so...
Oh yeah, huh? How do they find...
I have no idea.
Oh, it's
not
because...
a big deal.
Yeah.
So I say it's not a big deal, because this laptop can put pretty much whatever you did, which is
And
amusing.
we'll absolutely still take questions if anyone has them.
Yep.
I'm gonna set up the factory again.
They're back.
The good news is, Gradimax, you no longer have to equip them. They come pre-equipped.
Yeah, with unenchanted stuff.
Well, if you have an
The
army,
sheer numbers of them
not
counts up
everyone
for
in the
that.
army gets the shiniest sword.
My army does.
They get whatever's laying around out back. Gradimax is like, not my army. Hey, I have some people that survived.
Somehow.
One of them managed to find a stick.
Very effective weapon.
Very effective test.
So we're going to be putting this on our main server?
Well, our main server keeps crashing for some reason. Whereas it's definitely not the server, or it's definitely not the humans that are doing it.
Are we
As
streaming
this has
this?
proved.
Because it's awesome.
Yeah, we're streaming it.
Now we're evil. We just talk about it and don't let them see.
See, the giants are so worthless. They don't do anything. Just sit there while the little guys on the ground destroy them.
They need AI.
And big Thor hammers.
Oh my. It is a big slime.
Is somebody still
The
working
lag.
on the big, on the main server?
It's running
I
if
think I
someone wants
killed
to
it.
test it.
Someone spawned a big old slime, and I think that did it.
Yep, that's taking everything out.
Because the state of sponge server I can't actually see online.
That big slime, welcome your new overlord.
Oh, actually, see, this was actually a bug.
Oh?
The server was eaten by massive flood.
Yeah, the slime's what did it.
How so?
It looks like the slime had illegal collision bounds.
What?
So
Should be fine
we're
now
at
if
the
we
slime
rejoin.
police to take it away.
Should be fine now if you rejoin, though. Should be, that is.
Oh, we can try and put it on the main server, then open it up for everyone to join.
Who?
Oh, I'd love to as well, too.
Demon, are you able to do that?
This is theoretically, yep, they're working.
It's not
I'm
crashing.
seeing the SL servers offline.
Okay.
The
Here we
actual
are.
demo server is up.
I'd say at this point we should probably just release the IP and let everyone join.
Alright.
Probably so long as someone doesn't decide to do something silly like that slime again.
I think the player count.
We nixed the old world, did we?
Yeah, I should probably fix that.
And
Is
everyone will be
there still a
subject to
whitelist
all
on
this.
this?
The server will be back up in just a sec.
Oh.
Well, the player limit was set at 20, so...
Oh, right.
Buddy disconnected from your channel. Buddy joined your channel.
Okay, here we go. Everyone should be able to join now.
Whoa, who snuck the map in? That was not good.
What happened?
It loaded using the map. Oh. Sorry, one second. It loaded up using the old craft map. It's starting now and will be good. Hopefully.
Perhaps we should have released the IP when we knew you could join.
Technical
Exciting.
difficulties.
Do we know anything about the inventory implementation? Make a comment
I
on that?
know that it was Mumphrey's intention to have it finished by yesterday evening or have something up, but he ran out of time. But I know that he's basically right there with it, so it should be done. It should be done the moment that he has time again on Monday or so.
Yeah, just do keep in mind that when we do find issues with mixin stuff, that it does hold that back, because the mixins are the priority over the mixin library is a little more important to us than some of the other things.
Right.
Can somebody help me on that server, please? Because it looks like the white list got managed.
And I think it
lagged out again.
No, that was a crash null pointer exception. I'll put it in IRC.
Was that with the scoreboards back on there again?
There is nothing on here.
It has to be with the Forge build that it's using.
Which one is being used?
Whatever one sponge crabs. 1372, I think.
I thought it was 1371.
Whatever it is. It's like an FML or Forge error, rather.
That or there's just something broke with the with the Forge install on there or something. It's very strange because I haven't hit any of these issues locally.
It's using Forge 1371.
How are you starting it, Jeeden?
Well, I either start the jar myself with Go, or I run it in IDE, one of the two. Right now it's being ran in the IDE, but I started it up with not the IDE and it worked just fine.
This ominous and deathly silence brought to you by Flard.
Blood really is everywhere, isn't it?
Blazes, seriously?
Good product placement.
Are we able to just boot up the test server without humans modifications?
You wanna... Sure, I can try and
Like,
put the latest.
probably running a few builds back of Sponge?
There were some other fixes that required some of the latest builds, I could have sworn.
Yeah, the latest build doesn't have any human code in it. You could literally use it as is.
Doesn't latest have scoreboards?
Yes, but
Latest
I don't think
has,
that's causing any issues.
I don't think that's the issue here, though. I don't think it's the scoreboards doing this.
And if it was humans, though, I have no objection to removing it. If it was humans, then my local server would have died, and my local server's been fine until someone spawned a giant slime. That's something else altogether.
Well, there are 14 people on right now without a crash. What's the commands for humans?
To spawn humans.
Spawn name.
Spawn name and then UID.
Can I be opt?
And me also.
If you can give me permissions, I could just do it myself. Because I have it in my history.
You can also
But
add a
there you
boolean
go.
to the end of that command.
He's
And
here,
set it to
and
false if you don't
he's
want them to
deciding
follow
to
you.
murder people. There we go. Go forth, my people. Everything seems to be working fine. I don't know what you would have changed.
Is Craftbook on the server?
Nope, there's nothing on here, and there never was. We rolled the die of chance with.
Well, no, but I mean, like, I wanted to at least show some people the that one Craftbook feature.
Yeah, there's no Craftbook on here.
So, what changed this time, Demon?
Nothing.
It doesn't make any sense. None whatsoever. Unless we found a very rare issue that can happen with Forge, and it's a Forge bug.
There are some non-deterministic forge bugs to do with. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, but I don't
login.
want to say they're truly bugs until we actually get around to updating for the latest Forge.
That should be done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it should be.
I've put reasons in the bottom.
Horsegate.
Might someone grant me up?
I just see people teleporting because they're trying to follow me. Come forth, my children. Shred the non-believers.
Someone has the username SpongeAPI. That's
I see that. Help. You get no help. Who's my unfortunate victim?
I think we've demonstrated enough.
Hello, Game Alpha MC. You cannot escape.
The armies attack.
I have to say, Aaron, you outdid yourself with teleporting and such. That's actually working pretty well.
Thank you.
No, my children.
No.
Do keep an eye out on our Twitter feed later, and we'll try to see if we can get the original demo up and running at some point in the next day or two, if we have time.
Well, we could probably put the world's test one and teleport people to the new dimension that we added.
Do we have anything capable of hijacking a portal, like a nether portal or something?
No, we have the ability to mass teleport people. I believe so.
Do we have a compiled version of that world test plugin?
Just a moment.
I will be back in a minute or two, folks.
Aww.
My army. My horse.
Oh no, all my NPCs are dead.
How could you, Gratamax? How could you do that?
Attack, my brethren. Attack. As you can see, the AI is excellent.
I'm back.
The AI is ruthless.
I don't think we can be throttling the AI stuff. It just does until it gets killed or we get rid of it.
So, who spawned the Ender Dragon? And the Wither.
I don't know, but it's hilarious seeing the NPCs getting thrown around.
They are really good against it, though. But then again, they're not nearly as good against it as they would be if Gradamax had his super NPCs with the super bows. Once you have those, they can absolutely destroy a Wither pretty quickly.
Buddy joined your channel.
Is the Wither trying to attack the Ender Dragon?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
it gets really funny when you have a bunch of them. Look at that.
Nice.
Go forth, my army.
That is actually hilarious, watching the Wither attack the Ender Dragon.
Yeah, and they're basically damaging themselves and not the Ender Dragon.
See, I had debated making the NPCs fire the Wither attack.
That would have been nice.
That would have been horrible.
Would have been effective. I mean, I'm not saying there wouldn't be a lot of, casualties of land.
All right,
I
we
think
got
half
one
the
last
problem-
things. We got
Okay.
one last thing that we want to show you guys before we call State of Sponge done today. That is going to require the server to go down one more time so Demon can put it up. But I think you guys will enjoy it. Gabazo, you and that TNT.
What? If we had World Edit...
Oh, no, I don't even want you thinking about that.
Use World Edit to turn 100 chunks into TNT and set it off.
Oh, no. You have to do it creatively. You have to turn all the dirt and stone into TNT.
Are you wanting to get rid of the map or the server?
The map.
Okay, that seems like a good way to get rid of the server.
Now use the math generation to make some fancy pattern out of TNT.
Could make the tree leaves spawn with TNT instead of leaves.
True. Could make all grass TNT instead.
I'm just gonna mow the lawn.
And tall grass fire. Perfect.
Make tree leaves TNT and blocks of grass, redstone blocks.
Just make everything flammable.
So what are we waiting for?
Server's starting right now. It's generating its worlds.
Yep.
I'd kind of like water that could catch fire.
You mean gasoline?
You mean lava?
Or alcohol.
How close are we now?
I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm pretty sure it's scoreboards that's causing our issues.
What did I say?
Then let's yank the scoreboards plug in.
Not scoreboards.
Yank the scoreboards.
And someone was
up.
saying that it couldn't be scoreboards.
Everyone was blaming my humans. My humans always work.
I didn't say anything about humans.
Scoreboards have been framed. It's not their fault.
They're just poor and misunderstood.
Can we get Craftbook back on in that case?
Yeah.
Sure, one sec.
We should be able to put the other map back on here, minus scoreboards.
No, that map doesn't start at all anymore.
Yep.
Because that map is gone.
The fact that the scoreboards were applied, that's the problem.
No, I really don't think that can't be it. Just having a team with like 8 people on it isn't enough to cause that. Maybe something the plugin was doing, or the implementation, but not just having a scoreboard on the world.
I've seen Minecraft crash for less.
We can always give you a copy of the save file to play with.
Yeah, that may not be a bad idea if he's going to fix this.
I'll zip it up after for you.
And zip up the plugins that were used with it as well.
I'll grab the whole folder we were using.
Speaking of which, I remember when I was able to completely freeze the server by trying to detonate 21 pieces of TNT at once. Granted, that was back in, beta 1.3 or something?
The good old days.
I got a seg fault from Minecraft once. That was pretty interesting.
Wasn't it Java 7 that was doing that?
Yeah.
Most likely vanilla will be updated first to a future version of Minecraft.
The server is currently timing out. It's probably due to the Forge bug that's currently flooding console.
It's
so
actually
it's
not
not
timing out, though.
scoreboards?
It's actually not timing out, though. I'm actually in the Skylands world. If you want to, or maybe never mind.
Would you look at that? It timed out without scoreboards.
But this time the FML bug was encountered. Last time our die rolled good.
Shall we re-roll the die?
I'm attempting, apparently.
Aaron's hoping so desperately that it's not his scoreboards.
Yes. Scoreboards would never do such a thing.
That's exactly how I felt when someone started talking about my humans being the cause.
I think T-Bot's ready to shoot me in the face. How's the server going? It looks like it's still down to me.
Currently starting, just finished starting up.
I'm in.
Dice rolls have been good so far. We've yet to roll a 1. Oh, we just rolled a 1.
I don't want to say that it was because scoreboards weren't installed, but
Well, great.
Sorry, I mean 4502, but
Okay, Gavzo, you want to TP to the Skylands? Never mind.
Do you not remember that we were saying we just rolled a 1? What changed in the most recent builds? Because I remember Craftbook running just fine. Like the other day.
So how about we just have it with just the server and Worlds Edit? Worlds Test, sorry.
that's what I'm currently loading up.
Okay.
I managed to send the sig kill to my batch session instead of the server, though. That's why it's taking a minute.
Someone's system administrator skills are being called out. As with all things, I just blame Jeeden.
That was a 1. Unexpected packet during modded negotiation.
let it be known that scoreboards had no part in this.
You either got really good luck at rolling a 1 or really bad luck at not getting anything else.
That's the reason I don't play Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, from here we can probably call SOS a close, and we can save showing of like the Skylands and stuff for the next one, because it's
we
gonna.
can just show it on Twitter or something.
We can do that too.
Also, assuming that we get a Minecraft panel, I believe that the next SOS will take place there, isn't it?
That is something that we hope to do, but we're not sure at this point. So I'd say at this point, we'll just go ahead and call it adjourned for the State of Sponge.
Well, server's on. Let's see if we can get one glimpse of Skylands.
Probably doesn't help that Gabazoo's still blowing up TNT. That's really helping the lag, I think.
Someone used an old version of Skylands that didn't have all the flowers and such.
That's okay. That at least shows what we're going for here, though.
That's a very
It's a
pretty
very
world.
placeholder-like, but that is...
This one, yeah.
Can someone pass me off real quick? It looks like that was probably deleted. Thanks, Aaron, baby.
Yeah, not me also.
Is World Edit loaded?
Negative.
It looks like we're still teleporting people too fast. That's why you see all the other chunks unloading.
Yeah, I'm still in the overworld.
And just for those wondering about the copious amounts of redstone and gold, that's all the placeholders for the flowers.
There is a much more current version of this that DDoS is working on, but we'll show off the completed version of it on the next State of Sponge.
And we'll probably post a few pictures on Twitter. And I'm assuming
Absolutely.
we'll probably have the plugin link on the forums as well.
This is basically, this is pretty much our Easter egg, so to speak. I always loved the concept of the Skylands, and a lot of other people did too. I always hated that Mojang ended up removing it. So this right here is using...
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. So this right here is using solely Sponge API to generate this world, which is obviously called Skylands. And they do have some monster spawns, though that's not being controlled by us yet. The generation and everything else, though, is completely controlled by Sponge. And we hope to do a lot of interesting features and such to this world. It looks like even a tree generated here.
I think you should mention that
You
Sponge.
put it. Gotcha. What was that?
I think you should mention that Sponge doesn't. You couldn't say it's completely generated by Sponge because it uses Flow Noise, which is an external noise library. So I think it's important to note that Sponge doesn't have any of the noise generating utilities that Bucket does, but it's in a different library that's easy.
Right, but we typically don't single out libraries. If you get Sponge API, you're going to get Flow Noise. So
Come back, Gabazoo.
For what?
I had a present for you. Oh gods.
Gabazoo, you monster!
That right there is
Oh
amazing,
wow,
though.
chunk error.
Yep, there's one chunk error in the Skylands right now. That's the original spawn chunk. Will be the overworld. But I think at this point we should be good to go, and we can call this one close.
Yep, I think it's descending to as much chaos as possible. Hopefully, we can get some stability in future builds. Yeah, these things happen when we code on the run.
Right, and this was a lot of experimental stuff that we were wanting to show off, and stuff like that's expected to happen. With the next day of Sponge, it'll be a lot more stable than this.
And tested.
Yeah, right.
Is there any
Unlike
prospect of
scoreboards.
having a long-running test server officially?
Yes, we will likely set up this as a long-running test server.
Just be liable. It's liable to break for days at a time, so don't get used to playing on it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely not a stable server, but a test server.
Well, that's the point, I guess. We're meant to break it.
Then we can reset it at any time. It's just the usual disclaimers I like to make.
So I think that's going to be it.
Yeah, that's a close. Thanks everyone for coming along. Apologies for all the issues we've been having. But see you
Bye-bye,
next
everybody.
time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.